time a neighbor called us about Astro, the dog was nearly dead. As Astro was too weak to bark or even to stand up, the officers knelt down, speaking gently to Astro. Then they saw it. Astro was wagging his tail. He was barely moving, but yes, the poor, sick dog was saying, "Welcome, friends." Astro's owner was charged with animal cruelty. He admitted that he was deliberately starving the dog to death. Fortunately, Astro was adopted by a loving family. Today, he's happy and healthy, well-fed and loved. Now, if animals had no moral standing at all, because they can't make agreements, none of us would have a problem with this. This would be okay. It would be legal to starve dogs to death. But obviously, very few people feel that it is all right to behave this way to a dog. Or even to torture an animal that isn't a pet. If you were to trap a squirrel and torture the squirrel, well, clearly illegal, unacceptable. It is difficult for Carl Cohen to explain why this is unacceptable if animals have no moral standing. So on the two sides, for my part one here, I see two extremes. On the one hand, Tom Reagan seems to give animals such strong rights that it's hard to explain when we choose people over animals, and how we should resolve conflicts. Carl Cohen, on the other hand, removes animals from the moral realm so thoroughly that it's hard to explain why we have laws against cruelty to animals at all. So what we need, I think, is a theoretical basis for caring about animals, whether we call it rights or not. If it's rights, then I wouldn't call it in the narrow sense of rights, but some basis for our moral concern about animals, a theoretical basis that doesn't get us into the trouble of too much. And that's what I intend to try to provide this evening. And the main thing is in part two. You can see that I don't print very well. This has always been a weakness. But as I go through these parts, you can see the progression of the lecture. And I always find this helpful, because just in case it's getting a little slow, you say, "Oh, goodness, thank goodness he's already on part 4. It can't be too much longer." So here we are on part 2. There are 3 approaches to environmental ethics in general that can be applied to our relationships with non-human animals. Anthropocentrism is the view that only human beings are of moral significance, that any concern we have for a being that is non-human is indirectly a concern for human beings. So, for example, you shouldn't harm someone else's car, not because the car has any rights, but because the car's owner has rights. It's the human being. Same thing would be true for an animal. You could only be concerned about its welfare if its welfare had an impact on a human being, in the anthropocentric view. People who are anthropocentrists often worry that if we concern ourselves with more than human beings, then human beings will not receive the attention they deserve, because there are many poor human beings. If we decide that human beings should be concerned about animals, for example, then we take away some of our concern for people, according to some anthropocentrists, who therefore reject moral concern for animals out of concern for people. They think it is a win-lose situation if we help animals, for example, by not experimenting on them, or by not eating them, or by not using them for entertainment. If we help animals by rejecting these practices, then human welfare will be reduced. And they prefer human welfare. Non-anthropocentrists think that we do have and should have some concern for at least some non-human beings. So Tom Reagan is a non-anthropocentrist. Carl Cohen is an anthropocentrist. Here too, often there is the sense of opposition. The more that we give to non-human beings, the less we have for human beings, but that's all right because we have no right to impose on the non-human. So we should give certain things up out of respect for non-human beings. There is still a sense of conflict between the human and the non-human, but the conflict is resolved more in the direction of the non-human than here, where the non-human gets no concern. My approach is called Synergism, and it is the view that the human and the non-human can experience a win-win situation or a lose-lose situation. To understand why I think that can be, let me mention the Hedonic Paradox, which is that in order to be happy in your life, you really need to not concern yourself with your own happiness. It is not productive. It is self-defeating to aim at your own happiness. People who aim at their own happiness it's like they're taking their happiness pulse all the time. Am I happy? Is this the best use of my evening? Sitting in this lecture? I don't know. Thought it was going to be good. Maybe not. Look at my watch. What else could I be doing? Or if you have a friend, should I be committed to this friendship? Maybe there are better friends that I could have. People who have better senses of humor, or will entertain me more, or will introduce me to new, better experiences. So your relationships with friends are less committed, because being concerned with your own happiness, you're always liable to look for something new that might make you happier. Seeking happiness directly makes commitment to a cause, to a person, to an event very difficult. And people who are constantly uncommitted tend to be unhappy. The happiest people tend to be, and this is just a generalization about human welfare, they tend to be the people who are concerned